Welcome to another episode of Breaking Battlegrounds with your host Chuck Warren. I'm Sam Stone. Our first guest up today, Richard Paul Evans, a friend of the program and #1 best-selling author of The Christmas Box. Since then, he's written 41 consecutive New York Times bestsellers, with more than 35 million copies of his books in print in 22 languages. His newest novel, The Christmas Stranger, continues that tradition of heartwarming storytelling. You can find all his books at richardpaulevans.com. But, Richard, how's the new book doing?
It's doing great. It just came out last week, and it hit number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list.
Oh, my goodness.
Is that your fastest rise to the New York bestsellers list?
No. They usually come out pretty strong, but this list was so tough. My agent called me and said, you may not hit the list this time. Like, what? It's like, oh, there's monster books on there, and I was hoping to just hit the list somewhere in the top 15, and to hit in the top 5 is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That's interesting he said that, though, because I feel, of course, I'm not working for you, but I feel you have a very loyal following. So when a book comes out, they're buying it, right? I mean, I bought it, I read it. It's on my checklist for Christmas. So, I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of fans of your writing that just buy it every time you have a book out. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love my readers. I have such incredibly loyal fan base. One time a radio show, the guy attacked me for, I'm not sure why. Yeah, he was kind of nasty. It's like, well, okay. And 3 days later, someone told me, he came on there, he goes, Richard Paul Evans fans, please leave me alone. Okay, I'm sorry. And then one of my books was banned, if you can believe that. And I found out later that 4 of my, it was banned by a large bookstore chain, and 4 of my readers were taken out of the stores by police.
Wait, but why would they ban you? Why would they ban you from a
It
book?
was my story, The Last Promise. They thought it was inappropriate, and the person who banned it had never read the book.
Yeah, that seems to happen a lot now. Unsadly.
It was bizarre because it was international. It went international instead of saying they're sorry. They just doubled down, and so when the news came on, it's like she's never read the book. She thinks this, it's like they did a lot of damage with the bookstore chain and the person who did it, but.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Well, you have your new book, The Christmas Stranger, and right now number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list. Give our audience an overview of the book. Again, everybody, I loved it. I thought it was very sweet. I had tears at the end last night when I was reading it. Tell us about it and what gave you the spark to write this book.
The author Terry Brooks said, sometimes the magic happens. We go to work on a book and sometimes the magic happens. And this is one of those times. I always give everything I have to my books.
Sure.
Like Hemingway said, just sit down at the typewriter and bleed. And that this one, when you read the book, so there's some turns and it's really hard not to be, I don't want to give any spoilers. But when I got to the final turn, which no one has picked so far, that I've found out of thousands of readers, I wept. And I thought, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe that something so beautiful had come to me. And I thought, when this gets out there, people are going to have a really powerful experience, because I'm sitting here crying over my computer. So when I first started it, I struggle a lot with depression, and it's kind of a family genetic thing. And my mother actually attempted suicide 4 times. And during the time when I was writing this, I was really deep in it and just really struggling. And one night I went to walk my dog at midnight, and I was walking, and I was just filled with such sadness. And I was praying while I was walking. It's like, why is this happening? Why do I have to battle this? And then suddenly I just broke down crying. I'm just sitting there crying. And it was bizarre because it's like I broke open. At that moment, the book started pouring into my mind. And I saw it as clearly as a movie. And I went home and I wrote 5 chapters, clean chapters, just straight. from that experience. And it starts out with a man who's thinking of taking his life. And after he's lost everything he loves, or the people he loves. And it became, I didn't know where the story was going. I followed this inspiration, and I kept thinking, this book is incredible. So this one's been really special. I mean, there's just magic to it.
Do you often get that kind of creative spark from your bouts of or battles with depression?
Well, you know how Southern writers, they're almost all alcoholics.
Right.
It actually made me think of Churchill, who was sort of famous for going into these, 1 or 2 week. He called it his black dog, but
his funks.
But he would come out of it with just this massive energy and ideas that he cultivated in that period. And I was kind of hearing some echoes of that almost.
Yeah, you know what? That's interesting because I've never thought of that, but I told my wife once, I said, Carrie, I write better when I'm depressed, when I'm fighting with
Is
this.
that because you're more interested? I mean, so the main character in this, Paul Wanless, he's battling depression from a significant loss in his life. Does your experience dealing with that come out with Paul and how he reacted to things? His quick burst of anger to then, I'm very sorry for what I did, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think so. And the word Wanless, of course, in Scottish means hopeless.
Oh, okay. That's fantastic.
Similar.
We're with Richard Paul Evans, the author of The Christmas Stranger. You can go to richardpaulevans.com and buy it. I highly recommend you do. Would you consider yourself, you had the term in the book, and it's not officially in the dictionary, but people use it. Would you consider yourself a Christmas file?
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, my wife has really deep OCD, and so Christmas, she can't stand the decorations out. So people say, "Is your house all Christmas?" And like, I had an office and I had a Christmas tree up year round, and so my wife, bless her, she's lovely. She buys me all these nutcrackers, like they are in the books.
Okay.
That's how it started. So I have this incredible collection of nutcrackers, and that's about as far as she can go putting the nutcrackers out.
Do you have a favorite nutcracker? My mother used to collect those. That's kind of an interesting.
Oh my gosh, it's the Winky Guard or the Flying Monkeys. I have.
Interesting.
Wizard of Oz. It's cool, yeah.
What's your famous Christmas file fact? I have a new one after reading your book, but what's yours?
Good question. When I was writing this, I got a book. It's like right to my site here about all these things about Christmas that are just surprises. Someone asked me if I knew all these things. I really don't have any fun facts. I just, other than I can't wait till the eggnog hits the shelf because it's my favorite drink.
My favorite fun fact, Sam, in this book was, who was the first Christmas song written by a female, Sam?
The first ever?
Yeah, first Christmas song written by a female.
Oh, I have no idea.
Little Drummer Boy. And who first recorded it?
I thought that was Bing Crosby.
Von Trapp family. From the
Really?
Sound of Music.
Wow.
That is my Trivia Pursuit winning number, Paul.
Yeah, there's because he has all these facts. It's kind of a joke, like why some of the songs were written. One was written. Oh my gosh, what is it? It was written during the heat wave in Los Angeles. He says I couldn't get cold. I didn't want to get cold, so I wrote a song about being cold. People dressed up like Eskimos, and he goes, it cooled me off.
What's your favorite Christmas song?
Oh, I heard the bells.
Nice.
But when I'm writing this in like June, April, May, June, I listen. Sometimes I just listen to Christmas music and light Christmas candles, and just because I have to just get in the mode.
Yeah, you need those here. Like living here in Arizona, I find I need the radio Christmas songs. I appreciate them because otherwise it doesn't feel very Christmassy when it's still 88 degrees and sunny.
Yeah.
We're with Richard Paul Evans, author of The Christmas Stranger. Richard, in the second segment, I want to talk about some quotes in the book and your philosophy on them. But you've had 8 books made into movies now. Is there interest in The Christmas Stranger from studios?
Absolutely. In fact, I talked to a producer yesterday who was just foaming at the mouth to get this. He goes, "Look, all your books are wonderful, but this one's special." Um, I said, "Well, you kind of have to get in line because there's other."
What?
Um, ever since my those who have Netflix, if you've seen the movie Noel Diary,
Right.
with Justin Hartley, you know, I know my movie did well because Justin Hartley is the most handsome man on the planet, and director Charles Shire is an incredible director. But the book was the number one, or excuse me, the movie was the number one stream movie in the world the week after it came out. It was huge, and I got to tell you that was fun because everywhere I went in the country, people would somehow figure out I wrote the book, and to have hundreds of millions of people watch something you produced is really fun. So I've had 8 of them. That's by far my favorite.
We got 2 minutes left in this segment, Richard. When you write a book, so when I was reading this book, I was trying to think of what actors or actresses could play the roles. Does that come into your mind when you write a book? Thinking now that you've done so many, you've had 8 movies made. Like, okay, I can see this actor playing Paul, this actress playing Colette, who's his love interest.
This is why I can't write books, because for about 15 years, my answer would have been Andy McDowell.
Does that happen to you though, Richard?
By the way, I have an Andy McDowell story. I'll tell you after.
Okay.
But no, it doesn't actually. What I do go online and look for characters. So I just go on and pull up pictures, and then I'll put them up next to the computer, and just so I know what they look like, and I know who I'm talking to. So I do that. But the problem with getting an actor is then you're going to be caught into like, oh, now all of a sudden, like Lawrence Fishburne was very interested in starring in my last book, A Christmas Memory, and it's like all of a sudden I would have been writing The Matrix into it. You know, it would have been awful. So I don't think about actors and actresses when I'm writing.
We're going to break here. We're going to be coming back with more in just a moment from Richard Paul Evans, friend of the program, #1 best-selling author. Folks, you can get his new book, The Christmas Stranger, at richardpaulevans.com/books. It is a fantastic read. I only got a few pages into it, and then I fell asleep last night. I got to admit the truth on this one. The problem with getting older, Chuck, it hits 9 o'clock, and it's like, okay, I'm ready to go to bed now. But we're coming back with more from him in just a moment here, and then you're definitely going to want to stay tuned because our next guest up today is going to be talking about all this brouhaha in Utah with redistricting there, a story I think a lot of people don't understand. So stay tuned for that. Breaking Battlegrounds coming right back.
Remember college? Well, now college is over, and here comes your student loan debt. You really need to talk to YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They can save you thousands of dollars and can get you a custom payment that you can afford. So don't let private student loan debt ruin your life. Call YRefi today. It's huge!
Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. We're continuing on now with Richard Paul Evans, #1 best-selling author of The Christmas Box. His new book, The Christmas Stranger, continues the tradition of heartwarming storytelling. A little story about sometimes the universe it sends us exactly who we need. You definitely want to check that out at richardpaulevans.com/books. But Richard, before we went to break, you had something. I got to just dig in further. You have an Andy McDowell story. I had a 15-year crush, so I pretty much need this story.
Oh, you'll love this. Carrie and I were flying somewhere, and she was, before the flight, she was upgraded to first class. So I was sitting in back, and she's up there in first class, and then suddenly the flight attendant comes back and goes, "Mr. Evans, we have room in first class, so come on up." So I go up and I slide in, and I realize in the seat next to me is Andy McDowell. I said, "Wow, you look just like Andy McDowell." And she goes, "Yeah, I am." and we start talking, and I said, I'm an author, like I've had a lot of movies. We started talking about it. And then all of a sudden we were like laughing, and my wife keeps looking over at us. And I remember she said to me, she goes, "Oh, Richard, you should have seen me when I was young. I was something." I go, "Andy, you still are something." And we got off. My wife went and talked to me. She goes, She liked you a little bit too much, I think.
Okay, I'm
Go,
jealous.
I'm like, you think? Really?
Now you know Sam just thinks you should be in every movie. Okay.
Okay.
So you had some great quotes in the book that I thought were very introspective. And first one is Paul wrote in his diary, "As I grow older, I find the concept of family more desired and less definable." How has that changed for you over the years, the definition of family?
Oh, as your kids go, as they grow up, um, and they move out, yeah, I think I get a broader perspective um, of who they are and what it means to be a parent, and to give them the freedom to be who they are. And that was such a liberating thing to realize I'm not responsible for who they become. I just need to love them no matter what. And to see that has worked. Our kids, they were close to all of them. They love each other, and it's like I feel so blessed and lucky. But it also comes down to, in the end, it's like that matters so much more than anything else I'm doing.
Right.
So family has just become so large, and the extended family. Unfortunately, my kids have mostly married people who've been good to them, and that's what's important.
There's a point in the story where Gabriel, I'll call him an angel for our audience, to Paul, who's our main character, our protagonist, said, "You'd be surprised how strong humans can be when they forget themselves for the someone they love." How have you found that to be true over the years?
Um, Completely true. And I think of some of the hardest times in my life, and how I became focused on just protecting my family. I think to me that's the most noble part of being a husband and father, is to be that protector.
Right.
And I've had experiences, including one time I was with the police. Someone had broken into my daughter's, when she was in college, into her dorm. It was some creep. And all of a sudden we found him. This guy was twice my size, and
Wow.
I tried to tackle him, and I didn't do so well. He was running from the police, so he was terrified. And it was interesting because afterwards, watching how the other people, the women, responded when they saw that, and I realized how much they really were hungry for someone who would be willing to, put their life down, lay their life down to protect the people they love. But to me, that is the greatest. That is my greatest calling.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a scene in the book where Colette, who's the love interest, works at a pharmacy, and Paul said he noticed most of her customers were elderly. And she says she preferred to think of them as vintage. And so all three of us who are on this interview right now are vintage characters. There's a quote I want to follow up on, says, "They say you don't know what you don't know, but as I get older," or in our case, guys, vintage, "I find that I don't even know half of what you think." Do you find that to be true as you've gotten older? Things that you were certain about that you're like less certain about, and other things you weren't certain about you're more certain about now?
Yeah, I mean, my son-in-law, he's very liberal. And I'm very conservative. He said something, which kind of surprised me. He goes, "Yeah, when I'm your age, I'm sure I'll be conservative because, as they say, if you're young and Republican, you have no heart. If you're a Democrat when you're old, you have no brain."
Right.
And in there are things that I just, and I think God led me along. I mean, I was very much. I just thought those who are gay are just doing this. I just had this very unaccepting. And my daughter's gay, and it's like, but she was married, and she was married to a very abusive man. And when I found out, and we got her out of that marriage, and then she married a woman, or she started dating a woman, and I'm it's like, whoa, how do I handle this? And I went and talked to her. I said, "I don't know how to handle this because this is counter to my belief system. So I'll just tell you what I'll tell the guys, and that is, as long as you're good to my daughter, then we won't be enemies." And now I look back, and I'm absolutely in love with her partner. She's so
Right.
adorable and so sweet. And I thought, man, was I wrong?
Yeah.
I found out years later my agent is gay, and it's like, you know, I was very wrong about this. And I was actually quoted in a gay magazine on the cover. It was interesting because they called me and said, you know, you're quoted on the front page of this huge publication. What I said is, you know, on the places where you're not sure which direction to go, the answer is always love.
You give me compassion, yes.
Yeah.
You know, you've been in politics. You've been in the book business. We've got 2 minutes left here. Reciprocity is a big deal in business, politics, book deals, I'm sure. But it's not the same with love, right? The difference between true love and, as you wrote, grace, it doesn't require reciprocity. Why do you think people don't understand that? When you love someone, all you want them to do is be happy. You're not expecting X in return.
I think they don't understand love. I think there's too much of a kind of narcissistic tendency to look at people as a means to an end instead of an end in itself. I think that's the beauty of parenthood. You know, we had one child who was very, very difficult, and you know, it kind of keeps you up at night. And I learned more about love through that experience than anything in my life, and about giving. And when I realized that, you know, I would give my life for this child who may never tell me that he loves me, and as he got older, he did. And I remember the day he told me he loved me, I actually wept.
Well, it's like I have an autistic son, and he's 25 now, and you love him without expecting reciprocity, and you know you've just learned more and more how much deeper that love becomes, because he in return can't really give it, and it's been a fascinating learning curve with love.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing, and I like to think, you know, that's how, if you understand that's how God loves us, it changes everything.
100%. 100%.
Absolutely. Richard Paul Evans, thank you so much for joining us once again. We always look forward to having you on the program. I'm guessing we might have you back with a new book next year.
I'm hoping so.
We got our fingers crossed.
And as 3 vintage gentlemen on the show, we're going to send Richard Paul Evans off with the Von Tropps on Little Drummer Boy. Richard, have a great Christmas, buddy.
Thank you very much, guys.
Take care.
All right, welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. We're continuing on now with Carol McNamara. Dr. McNamara is the director of the Great Hearts Institute for Classical Education. Before we went to the break, Dr. McNamara, you brought up a National Symposium that you have coming up. That sounds kind of fascinating to nerds like us, so tell us more about it.
Well, it's a perfect conference for nerds like all of us. We invite, it's called the Great Hearts It's the Great Hearts National Symposium for Classical Education. And as I was saying, it's a big tent conference where we invite classical educators, school leaders, thought leaders in the classical and education realm to join us. First, we have about 90 speakers, over 60 sessions. And those sessions are keynote speakers. We have Jeff Rosen this year from our theme. I should tell you what our theme is. We've jumped on the wagon of the semi-quincentennial, so it's
great.
Classical education and the American experiment, the Declaration of Independence,
which we don't have without that classical education. There is no America without that classical education of our founders.
And that's the theme of Chris Perrin's keynote address, who is he's one of the leaders in the revival of classical education.
Oh, he's brilliant. His work is fantastic.
We love Chris, and we're so excited he's coming. We have Jeff Rosen to address how Jeff Rosen is the president and CEO of the National Constitution Center, and he's going to talk about how classical education and classical ideas influenced the founders. That was, at the time of the founding, education was classical education. And then we have Doug Lemov, who is a specialist in, he's written the book Teach Like a Champion, and investigated the revival of using the true science of reading to teach students to read. And the rest of Symposium is scholar talks, panel discussions about subjects like AI in education and classical education, and the relationship between civics and classical education. And then also the rest of the conference are really hands-on workshops, K-5, 6-12, K-12.
Maybe a little bit of a curveball here, but those hands-on workshops, how are you finding, or how are your teachers finding it different engaging with students. It seems like there's been a very significant cultural shift in the last 5 to 10 years with young folks. How has that changed their interaction, and how do you engage them in a world where everything's demanding their attention for 2 seconds at a time?
That's so interesting. First of all, no phones in Great Hearts Classical Academies, and that's been we've done that before anyone started talking about it. And you know, even when I taught at ASU and Utah State and Weber State, when I realized there was Wi-Fi everywhere, I just said, you've got to put your computers and phones away. All I need is your attention for 90 minutes or 90 minutes at a time, right? And I think that we have a student population that, where parents are looking for this kind of education for their students. Classical education began for an audience that knew they wanted it. But now, after COVID, of course, but even just given the general challenges that you're talking about, that there's technology everywhere that is demanding the attention of students, parents are looking for an education that really makes their kids serious, prepared human beings for flourishing in an American Democratic Republic.
What time frame did you see this increase in interest in classical education from parents? Because I know it probably wasn't that way 10 years ago. Do you think when was the time frame this interest came about again?
I think it started, when Great Hearts started around 2002, around the turn of the century. But again, there were parents out there who knew it, that they wanted this education for their kids, for their students. But as the 21st century sort of started up, and then especially with COVID, so there are parents who wanted classical education. They wanted their kids to be reading whole books. I don't know if you've been paying attention. I feel like the universe is telling me something. Every single article that people are sending me is about the decline in literacy.
100%.
There's a crisis. There's a crisis of literacy. There's a crisis of seriousness. And after COVID, I mean, this is an old story, but parents saw what their kids were learning at school, and for them it was a crisis, and they started to seek out through various options in school choice, but they started to seek out. 44% of parents, when they're looking for new schools, choose classical schools now.
Is there any way a parent can put their child into a classical education like Great Hearts, and that child does not come out a better thinker and writer?
I can't imagine how that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. So
Right.
if you're a parent and you're saying, what should I do with my child so he or she could be independent thinkers, that they have some background, that they can be a better writer, this seems to be the path, right? And let me follow up with this as well. Would you recommend this? Let's say you go and you have a child that's very good at the STEM, right? The math, the science.
Yep.
Why is it also important for them to also study classical literature and philosophy?
Well, I don't accept the premise that they don't also study math and science as an.
Well, no, I would agree with that. I'm not suggesting that, but for someone who just says my son or daughter is very good at math or science, or the case may be, why is it important that they also bring this into their academic achievements?
Right. So it's interesting. Last year, our theme at the National Symposium for classical education was cultivating wonder, right? And wonder is at the heart of it. Wonder should be at the heart of any education, and because wonder is the gateway, the opening to learning, to caring about ideas, to caring about what makes the world work, how things in nature move and function, what numeracy is, how you count things, how you add them up, how you understand the way things move in the universe. And you have to understand what the moral and ethical questions are, what a human is, and how a human lives in the world in order to understand the way that you should use and understand and work with numbers. So I think that humane letters, the reading of literature, the understanding of ideas and arguments, is also the gateway to being a good mathematician, a good scientist, or which will open up engineering and medicine and all those fields.
Which makes
for
you ask the appropriate questions, the insightful questions, so you can do better at it.
One of the things I think is different, and tell me how important you think this is, but with Great Hearts, I felt like they had a whole of student approach from the start, where maybe some of the other big name competitors, and I'm not here to trash anybody in that space, but their focus is maybe so narrowly academic, it's so narrowly STEM, or it's on other things.
Right.
I thought one of the advantages of Great Hearts was they included the athletics. They included all of the extra things that are built in around a public high school for your students, which a lot of other charters sort of missed that boat.
Right.
How much of an advantage do you think that gives your students in developing as fully rounded humans?
Well, I think that's true. We focus. I mean, young students learn Latin. They learn how to read, how to dissect language, how to learn a foreign language, right? So Latin is a foundation for learning. Yes, they learn Greek too, ancient Greek too, but they learn how to learn languages. Their minds become agile in becoming familiar with language per se, and that makes the English language and literature and ideas more accessible to them. But then they're also all involved in music, and every school has an art project every year. So they are prepared to appreciate not just the good in terms of society and learning, and politics and government and so on, and not just the human in terms of literature, but also the beautiful in terms of literature and music, and what they see around them and how to appreciate it, and what they hear around them.
So tell us about your new quarterly publication.
Thank you for asking.
Oh, you're welcome.
So in September, as an extension of our gathering of the classical community, it occurred to me that we have this annual gathering of sort of 900 people from across the classical community, but that I should sort of take that on the road in a way, expand the opportunity for us to interact with one another online. And so I created what you might call the free press for classical education. I called it On Classical Education. It's on the Substack platform, and it's a multi-authored, multi-columned publication on classical education at Substack, I guess. And again, we've only just started, but we've had a really strong response by people who want to write about the different parts of classical education. That is curriculum, pedagogy. Right now we're in the middle of a discussion about how we communicate with parents and the community at large about what classical education is. And we have an article by Eric Twist from Arcadia. We have different responses as well. So we want to have that kind of dialogue. But we also want people to send us book reviews. And when I say book reviews, I don't mean just current books are great, but also all the books they're reading in their classical education, in their classrooms.
What is your favorite classical book? Classical novel.
People will think I set you up for that, but my Desert Island book.
You made it easy.
Yeah.
You made it easy.
Yeah.
My Desert Island. I read and write about a lot of Shakespeare, so just to ask, you could ask me on any given day, whatever I'm reading or studying is what is my favorite Shakespeare play. The Tempest I'm working on right now. I think that's Shakespeare's play about liberal education. But my Desert Island book is Plato's Republic. I taught that every year for my whole academic career, and it's the book I think that is the most comprehensive book about education and justice and and freedom, liberal education, that what makes you a free human being.
So your Desert Island book,
Yeah.
what would it tell us about today's environment? What are the warnings in there about how we're pursuing things today?
Well, I think that it would tell us that we're just not serious human beings all the time.
No,
anymore.
we're not, are we?
No, and that's why I say that I think classical education is the answer to this crisis of seriousness. That it teaches students to read through a whole book, to follow an argument, and it teaches them how to, through the Socratic method of teaching, it teaches them how to ask questions for themselves and become thoughtful human beings. So they're not subject to the opinions that others are going to try to impose on them, whether it's at college or in society at large. They know how to think for themselves, and that's the best kind of education with which we can provide them.
Quick question. I know you read a what, but what's a trashy book you like to read? A fiction book like a John Grisham or anything? Do you read anything like that?
Right now, I'm reading Fahrenheit 451.
Oh, okay.
Have you read that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the I want everyone out there.
Everyone
to
needs to read that,
Fahrenheit
yeah.
451. It's prescient, and it also shows us how we can create a human library that perpetuates education and reading.
I'm gonna throw another one in that same vein in there. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Oh, I don't know that one. Okay.
It's Vonnegut. It's brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Carol McNamara.
Coming on.
Yeah.
And we're going to come out to that symposium in February.
Absolutely. Everyone should come. nationalsymposium.org.
And we will have all the details for that on our social media. We will also have a link to the On Classical Education, Dr. McNamara's new amazing space to explore classical education and its philosophy and thought from all the people in that area. Thank you so much for tuning in once again, folks. Make sure you're downloading that podcast. Go to breakingbattlegrounds.vote. We'll be back next week.
Remember college? Well, now college is over. And here comes your student loan debt. Is private student loan debt wrecking your life? You really need to talk to YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They can reduce your payment, and they don't care what your credit score is. Don't let private student loan debt ruin your life. Call YRefi today. Yeah, you got it.